Good morning to Dr. Rosia and my friends. Today, we would like to talk about the sensory organ. This presentation are prepared by me, Angelina, Lau, and Liu. Sensory receptors are special parts of our body that help us sense and respond to the world around us. They are like tiny detectors that detect different things and send messages to our brain, which help us understand what we are experiencing. Sensory receptors are found in various parts of our body, such as our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and other organs. There are five types of the sensory receptor in our sensory organ, which are chemoreceptor in our nose, chemoreceptor in our tongue, photoreceptor in our eyes, mechanoreceptor in our ears, and both mechanoreceptor, chemoreceptor, and nociceptor in our skin.
Alright, now we look about olfactory receptor. Olfactory receptor is the main sensor responsible for detecting odors. Olfactory receptors are a type of sensory receptor located inside our nose. They play a key role in our sense of smell. These receptors are special cells that can detect different odors molecules floating in the air. Here's how the process works. First, odor molecules dissolve in the nasal mucus inside the nose. Then they bind to the olfactory receptors. Once this happens, the receptors send signals that travel to the olfactory bulbs, and later these signals are passed to the brain where the smell is identified. Now we understand what olfactory receptors do. Then look at next slide. See how the smell signal move through different parts of the olfactory system. The next slide shows the main structure involved, which is the olfactory nerves, olfactory tracts, and olfactory bulbs, and how they work together to help us recognize and process different smells. Once the olfactory receptors detect an odor, they send electrical signal through the olfactory nerves. The olfactory nerves are the primary pathway that carry this smell information to the brain. They act like messengers, transmitting signals from the receptors to the central nervous system. And then look about olfactory tracts. These signals travel along the olfactory tract, which is a bundle of nerve fibers. The tracts connects the olfactory bulbs to other regions of the brain, especially the primary olfactory cortex, where we actually recognize and identify different smells. And the last, we look about olfactory bulbs. Olfactory bulbs play a crucial role in processing and interpreting all this information. It acts as a sort of processing center that organizes the smell signals before sending them deeper into the brain. So, in summary, the olfactory receptor detect odors. The olfactory nerves carry those signals, and the olfactory bulbs process them, and the olfactory tract send them to higher brain areas. Together, these structures allows us to detect, identify, and remember different smells.
For my part is about the human ear. The human ear is the organ responsible for both hearing and balance. The function of ear is to detect sound and help with balance. The ear transmits sound vibration and physical movements into nerve impulses sent to the brain. The human ear have three main sections, which are the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. There are structures in the human ear that are responsible for hearing and balance. So the first one is the cochlea. The cochlea is responsible for converting sound vibration into nerve impulses that can be interpreted by the brain. And the second one is the semicircular canals. The semicircular canals are responsible for converting physical movements into nerve impulses that can be interpreted by the brain. The sensory receptors in the ear are mechanoreceptors that detect mechanical stimuli such as sound vibration and head movements. function of semicircular canals. For the static equilibrium, which is head still, semicircular canals are not activated much. Instead, balance is sensed mainly by the utricle and sacule. For the dynamic equilibrium, which is head moving, semicircular canals are crucial because they detect changes in motion and direction. Diagram represents how the input of sound waves interact with the process of hair cells, which then led to the response of electrical signals and ultimately brain perception of various sounds. For the sensory input, sound waves are the inputs to our sense of hearing. For the process, hair cells detect the sound waves and convert them into electrical signals. For the response, the electrical signals are transmitted through the auditory nerve.
Next, we look at the gustatory organs, which is responsible for our sense of taste. These gustatory receptors are a type of sensory receptor mainly found on our tongue. These receptors are located inside taste buds, which are small structures that can detect different chemical substances in food. When we eat, the food chemicals dissolve in saliva, and this allows them to come into contact with the gustatory receptors. Once the receptors are stimulated, they send electrical signals through nerves to the gustatory cortex in the brain. That's how we recognize different tastes. There are five basic taste sensations that our receptors can detect, which is sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami.
Now, let's move on to the sense of vision. The photoreceptors are receptors that found in the retina of the eye that are responsible for detecting and responding to light. There are two types of the photoreceptors, which are rod and cones. Rods are more numerous than cones and are primarily responsible for visual in low light conditions, such as at night or in dimly lit environments. Cones are responsible for color vision and visual acuity in bright light conditions. They are less sensitive to light than rods but provide higher resolution and the ability to discern different colors. The diagram represents how the input of light waves interact with the process of photoreceptor, leading to the response of nerve signal and ultimately brain perception of vision. Light enters the eye through the cornea, which reflects the light. The light then passes through the pupil. Those size is controlled by the iris to regulate the amount of light entering. The lens further reflects the light to focus the image on the retina. Photoreceptors detect and convert light into electrical impulse. The nerve signal generated through the optic nerves to the brain. The brain interprets the signal, allowing us to perceive shape, color, brightness, and movement.
Other than that, I'm going to talk about somatic sense. The human body has two main types of sense, somatic and spatial. Somatic sense are the sensation detected from the skin, joints, muscles, and internal organs, viscera, while spatial sense are found only in the head, such as eyes, nose, ears, and taste buds. These sensory receptors help our body to detect change from the environment and send the information to our brain. There are three main somatic sensory pathways that carry sensory information to the brain. The first one is posterior column pathway, and the second is the spinothalamic or anterolateral pathway, and the third is the spinocerebellar pathway. Each pathway carries different types of sensation, which I will explain one by one later. The posterior column pathway carries sensation of the highly localized touch, the the fine touch, pressure, vibration, and proprioception, which means the sense of the body position. It consists two main tracts. The first, the fasciculus gracilis, which is located medially in the posterior column. It carries sensory information from the lower part of the body, such as leg and lower trunk. Beside the fasciculus cuneatus, located laterally in the posterior column. It carries sensory information from the upper part of the body, such as arm, upper trunk, and neck. This pathway helps us recognize precise and detailed sensations, like feeling a gentle touch or the vibration of a phone. Spinothalamic pathway, also called the anterolateral pathway, provides sensation of the crude touch, pressure, pain, and temperature. It has two main parts. The anterior spinothalamic tract carry crude touch and pressure, while the lateral spinothalamic tract carry pain and temperature sensation. This pathway helps us feel pain and detect changes in temperature, like something is cold or hot. After that, the spinocerebellar pathway carry proprioceptive information from our skeletal muscles, tendons, and joints to the cerebellum. The cerebellum uses this information help us to coordinate movement and maintain balance. For example, when you walk or run, the cerebellum constantly receives signal from this pathway to make sure your body moves smoothly and stay balanced.
Thank you, everyone.